Welcome back. A jury in New Mexico has reached a landmark decision against Meta, saying it failed to protect kids online. The tech giant has been ordered to pay $375 million over child safety violations. As MS Now reporter Britt Miller explains, widespread change could be on the way for social media.
What this case is about is one of the biggest tech companies in the world taking advantage of New Mexico teens, exploiting them.
In a David versus Goliath victory over Meta, a New Mexico jury found Tuesday that the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp violated state law, liable for putting teens and children in danger. New Mexico becoming the first state to win at trial against a big tech company for harming kids. The penalty? $375 million, a fraction of the more than $2 billion prosecutors wanted. The state argued the design of Meta's social media platforms allowed predators to exploit children. Those claims followed an undercover operation where state investigators created fake accounts to monitor Meta's content to kids. In the complaint, investigators say Meta's algorithms promote commercial sexual activity and child sexual abuse material to its users, including teenagers and children under the age of 13. Prosecutors alleged Meta was fully aware.
Meta knew not only what was going to happen, but it saw what was happening unfold in real time. In every one of the documents that we've gone through, Meta saw what was happening to kids.
The defense arguing that common sense dictates users beware.
Meta acknowledges publicly that some bad people, including some criminals, use its apps to commit horrific crimes. We believe the evidence has shown that Meta works incredibly hard to protect users, including teens.
Founder of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, saying in a deposition Meta's fault is limited.
I think that our responsibility is to develop tools that can help identify people like this and prevent these things from happening. I don't think that the standard for our platforms would be that you should assume that it will ever be perfect.
John Day, a former New Mexico deputy district attorney, says ultimately it was witness testimony that drove the verdict.
What was really compelling early on, the Attorney General put on school teachers, New Mexico school teachers, who talked about the level of harm and what they were seeing in the classrooms.
7 weeks of testimony, but jurors needed fewer than 7 hours to decide.
I don't think they're doing it on purpose, but they are aware of what's going on and they know the extent of it, and they really do need to fix it as best as they can, better than they have been doing.
The social media giant plans to appeal. John Day says this landmark trial is just the beginning.
I think for the New Mexico Attorney General, he got the door open a crack, and he and other attorneys general around the country may be thinking, this is how we do it. This is how we bring about change. This is how we protect our kids.
And on the horizon, a bellwether social media addiction case out of California. Meta, named alongside YouTube, is now facing week 2 of trial deliberations. The jury will determine social media companies' liability for teen mental health problems. And the legal battle in New Mexico isn't over. A bench trial is set for early May where a judge will decide whether Meta is a public nuisance. Prosecutors are hoping the court forces the tech company to make some major changes. Back to you.
MS Now's Britt Miller with that report. And joining us now, Democratic Attorney General Raul Torres of New Mexico. His office filed the lawsuit that won that landmark verdict. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. Talk to us, if you will, about what you think this victory means, what it could mean for social media platforms.
Well, this is a historic moment in terms of trying to hold social media companies accountable. Meta has known for years that it has created a dangerous and addictive product. They were warned by their own safety teams who repeatedly raised red flags about the things inside the design of the products that needed to be changed. And Mark Zuckerberg and other executives repeatedly chose profit over safety. And the jury yesterday delivered a resounding message that they expect a whole lot more in terms of the types of safety features that need to be provided in these spaces.
So, Mr. Attorney General, this is obviously a landmark decision that took place yesterday. There are countries like Australia that are going really far and saying, OK, we're going to ban people kids under the age of 16 from having access to social media, period. Is that something that you think could eventually happen here in the United States? Is there some sort of legal infrastructure in place that could actually allow that to happen?
Well, not at present, and I don't think there's consensus yet in Washington to take that kind of step. I think what yesterday's decision should do, though, is really prompt policymakers in D.C. to really recognize the sense of urgency that exists in our communities. Parents, educators, teens themselves recognize how dangerous these places are, and they expect a whole lot more from policymakers at the national level. We think this litigation is an important first step in opening up an opportunity to hold these companies accountable, but we need a lot more collective action at the national level.
Attorney General, in seeing this case, and it is a landmark decision, and it takes the first step in showing that the industry is not invincible. But when we talk about where the next steps will be, how do we thread the needle to where we don't go into censorship, but at the same time are very cautionary about the impacts, like your lawsuit showed, on things like children and others? Where do we guard ourselves and manage ourselves to where we don't infringe on free speech at some levels, but at the same time protect situations that you won in this lawsuit?
Well, the next phase of this case will actually be in front of the trial court in May. We're going to have an opportunity to make an argument that this was a public nuisance that endangered our kids. We're also going to have the opportunity to lay out injunctive relief. Those are specific recommendations for changing how this platform operates, requiring real age verification, changing the way the algorithm actually amplifies dangerous material and sexually exploitive content for minor users. We're asking and going to be asking for an independent monitor to make sure that we have implementation of those changes. This isn't about censorship. This is about creating a safe space and enforcing reasonable and responsible business practices in a digital environment.
Democratic Attorney General Raul Torres of New Mexico. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General, for joining us this morning.